Well, welcome. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Business and Legal Week in Review. This is episode 158, and today is July 20th, 2015. As always, my co-host Bob Hughes is with me. How are you doing today, Bob?
Almost always, anyway.
See? Isn't it great?
I'm here in body and mind today.
Excellent. And this is going to be a killer show. So we're off. Yeah, let's recap a little bit before we get going about last week, because last week we had a really good week as far as shows went. My favorite show last week was with Death Wish Coffee, Mike Brown from Death Wish Coffee, and it was just one of those interviews that we do where, yeah, I totally wanted to get something out of it. And that's how we, proceed with all of our interviews. We want people to really learn. And so we'll go in and we'll ask questions that can help people, whether they're going to be looking at perfecting their business life, their personal life, personal development, or whatever it might be. And I'll have that kind of idea that's what we're going to go in. We're going to try to elicit from these people so we can learn from them. Well, I did the same thing with Mike. But man, he had like hidden gems all over the place. I don't even think he knew how important what he was saying was to entrepreneurs. And
oh, really?
Oh, yeah, it was really, really, it was really good, really well done. The guy is one of these down to earth guys. He is not a highfalutin anything. He is just the average guy. He was an accountant in New York. And in New York State, hated it, right? Who doesn't? And for all those accountants out there who like it, I'm sorry, but and he decided he was going to open up a coffee shop in Saratoga Springs. Have you ever been up there, Bob, Saratoga?
I have not. I'm a New York virgin. I've not been there until this fall.
All right, nice. Yep, you're going to the city, and we're going to deal with that. But Saratoga's upstate. And one thing about Saratoga is that it's a racetrack town. So in the summer, it's really busy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And in the winter, it's dead. And then there's this one area. I'm going to just warn everybody. Okay. There's this one area of Saratoga Springs. That's why they call it this, where there's a park. It's very beautiful. And they have these springs that you can drink out of. Right now, they're like out of water fountains, but they're natural mineral springs. So they have no taste at all like water. It's kind of like drinking sulfuric acid in wet form. Oh, my God.
Oh,
now it's supposed to have all kinds of health benefits. But I remember when my wife and we first went up there with my parents years ago, before we were even married. And my mother thought it would be funny to have her drink out of the fountain without telling her that it was filled with this sulfur-like water. I don't think that my wife ever forgave her. Yeah, right. But anyway, I digress. So he's up in Saratoga Springs and he opens up this coffee shop. And, obviously in the winter, things slow down. And out of sort of desperation, he says, he created Death Wish Coffee, which is a super duper success. It is one of the best coffees, if not the best coffee that I've ever had. And super high quality, organic, done well. And he's, now grown his business into a very booming, very well-known brand. And the things that he was talking about were just so great. I mean, he talked about things like hard work, but in a way that made a ton of sense. And it was like, wow, oh, this is what he did. And how to treat your employees. And so just filled with a lot of really, really super information. So check that out over either on the podcast or on YouTube if you haven't done so already, because it really was. I was just so surprised. I even said to him, I said, I don't know if you know how much valuable information you've provided today. It's just really good. So one of those, one of those moments like where things just go super, super great. So that was last week. And we'll talk a little bit about this week, which is also going to be exciting. But before I do, I just want to thank today's sponsor. Now, today's show is sponsored by the Tech Blog Writer Podcast and Neil Hughes. Now, for those of you who are on LinkedIn, you might know Neil Hughes. You might even be affiliated with him or a friend of him. He is one of the most popular blog writers on LinkedIn. He has over 1 million article views and thousands of shares from 50,000 readers a month on LinkedIn. So he sort of has mastered LinkedIn. And he just started a brand new podcast called the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, which is available over on iTunes. And episode 1, his introduction, which was released on July 10th, is available. So I encourage you to check that out. One of the things that he says at the beginning of the intro for his podcast, he's not trying to sell you anything. He's not trying to promote anything. He just wants to give you valuable information and insight into writing on LinkedIn and other places. And he interviews famous bloggers. He has discussions with people that have been successful. So check that out. That is the Tech Blog Writer Podcast by Neil Hughes over on iTunes. No affiliation or relationship to Bob Hughes.
Not aware of them.
No, Neil is from the UK. Bob is from the USA. But check that out. And I want to thank Neil for sponsoring today's show. I listened to the first episode. I will be a subscriber. I like it a lot. The Tech Blog Writer Podcast. All right. So before
was that a Spinal Tap reference?
Was it? I don't know. Would you believe I've never seen it? Would you believe that?
Oh,
ever?
You need to make that's one of the lines. We're from the UK. You must be in the USA.
Never seen it. I mean, I know about it and the cultural references, but I'm right over my head.
The sad thing is there's so much truth to it. I've been lost under a stage before. Backstage, you end up walking around a circuit right back to where you started. Huh? You get the stage.
It's like
anyway,
like National Lampoon's European Vacation, where they keep going around the circle in England.
Absolutely.
Look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament.
You got it. Yeah, traffic circles in the U.S. Welcome.
So before we get going and get into this week's stories, I just want to say that upcoming on Wednesday for our On a Different Note show, we've got the Willis Clan, which is going to be super exciting because our maiden voyage, our first show, was 2 weeks ago for On a Different Note. And unfortunately, you were filling in, so you couldn't make that show, but we had Nate Maingard on, and he was really kind of inspiring, very, very interesting, and that show went pretty well. We did a replay of it last week just to get people reintroduced to this idea. And then this week, we've got the Willis Clan. They are super popular. Some of you might know them from America's Got Talent. They're a family, and they're singer-songwriters, producers, really, really talented people. They're all super good looking, and they all have talent, which just blows my mind, because some of us would just be like semi good looking or semi talented, but
yeah, I'm not asking for everything,
right? Just a little. So they're going to be on Wednesday, and we're going to be talking to them about their experiences in the music business, the music industry, and how they've maintained this relationship as a family and developed into a very popular group. They now have a show on TLC called the Willis Clan. And their music is very country folksy with some underpinnings of Irish or Gaelic music. So it's an interesting sound, but really well done. And they're a really, really nice family. So we're very excited to have them on Wednesday. So we have a lot to look forward to this week.
Absolutely. No, and that's fun. The whole new show is going to be a lot of fun as it builds and starts to snowball into just not only the opportunity for these people to tell their story and talk about what they've experienced in the music industry and in the entertainment industry as a whole, and for people that are either trying to get into it or people that are fans of theirs to kind of get a little of the backstory. Plus, here's some music from them as well.
Yeah, and if you're not into the music industry per se, the lessons that you can learn just on the business end of what they're doing are invaluable. We learned that from Nate Maingard, 2 weeks ago when he was talking about staying true to his own beliefs. Here's a guy that would turn down money from a major entity because he wants to stay true to his beliefs. So there's so much that we can learn. So it's going to be a great show. And I think you're right, Bob. As it builds and develops, it's going to be really, really something that everybody should tune into. But for our first two shows, we have some pretty, big name people. I'm very excited.
And we're going to get a lot of people from all walks of the industry. That's the fun thing. Get some people that have just starting out. You've got a group like the Willis Clan and people that have been there and done that. So that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
For me, anyways, but being into music as I am.
Yep. So
anyway, looking forward to it. Let's look forward to the week that was. Probably sans the Chattanooga, Tennessee situation. One of the bigger stories in the week was the verdict coming down in the James Holmes case. James Holmes, of course, the individual out in Aurora, Colorado, that decided to go into the movie theater and shoot the place up. Well, he's found guilty of murder in that shooting. Now, the question is will or will he not face the death penalty for killing 12 people inside an Aurora, Colorado movie theater? That's the next question jurors will be asked after finding Holmes guilty Thursday of first-degree murder in the July 2012 shooting. Holmes faced 2 counts of first-degree murder in each of the 12 victims. The jury found him guilty on 24 counts. All 24 counts. Holmes, who had pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, showed no reaction as the verdict against him was announced. He stood at the defense table with his attorney, his hands in his pockets. He faced a total of 165 charges. The jury also found Holmes guilty of attempted murder on all of the 140 counts against him for the 70 people wounded in the shooting. Additionally, he was found guilty of 1 count of possession or control of an explosive or incendiary device. The verdict was reached in almost 12 hours, not a lot of time. The jury began deliberations on Wednesday morning in the sentencing phase, which we'll expect to last about 1 month, slated to begin next Wednesday. The same jury will deliberate during that phase. In 2013, the prosecution signaled that it would seek the death penalty. By virtue of his insanity plea, though, the now 27-year-old Holmes had never denied he was behind the killings. But given his mental state, his lawyers argued that he should not be found culpable. Prosecutors who knew more than 200 who called more than 200 witnesses to the stand, among them investigators, students who knew Holmes and his ex-girlfriend, careful who you upset, insisted that the shooter knew well what he was doing when he did it. He acted deliberately to deliver pain, and his mental issues shouldn't excuse him from paying the price, they argued. Having bought a ticket 12 days before the show, Holmes, on July 19th, walked into the theater screening The Dark Knight Rises, and like anybody else, actually, but unfortunately, he walked out through a rear door, which he had left propped open. So he set it up. He knew what he was doing, and that's why they're going for it. So, insanity is the biggest thing here, Peter. I mean, obviously, he's going to get found guilty. I don't think there was a doubt in anyone's. Is this insanity plea going to work? He wasn't. He tried to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, but he's found guilty, period.
Right.
So does the insanity plea really play into the sentencing side of this?
Well, I think the insanity plea could have an effect on, a decision whether or not to put somebody to death because of the ongoing debate over, I think, the death penalty in general. And I think first of all, you've got those people that will argue that the death penalty is actually less punitive than life in jail without parole. So
sure,
there's an end, there. You die and it's over, and your pain, your punishment ends. So there's that argument. There's the argument that the death penalty and its litigation that arises out of it just doesn't make financial sense. There's all the discussions about it sort of traversing the lines of cruel and unusual punishment, especially when we saw some of the lethal injection executions where people weren't dying the right way. So there's such a host of issues that arise out of the death penalty. And I think that you might have a harder time with somebody with an insanity plea, because what if you're wrong? Because that's another edge here. How many people have been put to death accidentally? They were, convicted of a crime and they actually didn't commit it. And even if it's only a small percentage of people, 1%, 2%, there are still innocent people who might have been killed. And that's, a terrible travesty. So I think that the fact that he did plead insanity might have some benefit to him as far as, if you want to call it that, as far as the death penalty. I can consider myself, and this is where I should probably keep my mouth shut, but I consider myself a conservative for most points of view. However, there are a lot of things where I'm not as conservative as you would think. Gay rights, I'm not as conservative. And death penalty, for me, I think I look morally and I say, who are we to judge whether somebody lives or dies? So I have a moral problem with it. And all of the other arguments too kind of play in where I think, would I rather have somebody die or whether I'd rather have them in jail for the rest of their lives? And in my mind, I reason it like this. If somebody came into my house and they were, kidnapping my kids or threatening my kids, I would kill them and I'd have no second thought about it because of the situation I was in.
You have no doubt what was going on.
Right. If I'm now sitting on, sitting in the stands and I'm watching this killer who murdered somebody in my family, I think that although, and this is so hard to even say this because I'm not in that situation, but I think that although I would be angry and I'd want this person to suffer, I think that I'd have a hard time saying kill them because, again, this is a year, 2 years after the initial incident. And I just think that for me, I'm not a big fan of the death penalty. I would rather see different prison sentences. Maybe, what's his name? Aaron Rodriguez, right? The football player.
Right.
That guy's in that maximum super high security prison where you spend like 19 or 20 or even more hours per day in solitary confinement where you have no access to the outside and you have a 1 hour, playtime. Not really playtime, but you know what I mean, where you're outside and you can only see the sky. They have it walled off, so you cannot see anything outside of that. I mean, that's a frightening, scary ass thing. And I would rather see.
To you, it's frightening.
Yeah,
to you, it's frightening.
But
not to everyone.
I would rather see though more of that because I just think that as a juror, me deciding that somebody should die violates my moral code. I just couldn't do it, which is why I have never, ever practiced criminal law because I couldn't make that decision to represent somebody, even though they are entitled to their legal rights, if I thought or suspected that they might be guilty of something. So for me, I'm not a big fan of the death penalty, and that's where I say it kind of deviates from most conservative beliefs.
And, and that's interesting they say that. And I'm pretty hardcore on it. I would probably be less, although I understand why you think the way you think. I sometimes lean more toward, and I shouldn't say sometimes, I lean more toward the broken egg scenario in omelets. That you're going to break a couple eggs once in a while.
Right.
And as unfortunate as that is, but I'm not in the same world you're in either. I don't have to, I'm not in the law world. So it's easy for me to detract from it. Now, on the same token, I would be probably more sympathetic to the possibility of not invoking the actual death penalty if prison were just a little bit more ruthless and horrible. Because as far as I'm concerned, James Holmes should never see the sky again. He gets enough room to stretch his legs out, lay down at night, and then do his personal business right down there. We'll be by with your meals and a hose once a week.
Right.
And then of course now you get into cruel and unusual punishment, but that is, again, you get into subjective terms there. But I'm very, very not sympathetic to individuals that break the law. And I'm not an angel, but I also know that if speeding, I always use a speeding ticket in a scenario. If speeding tickets were $1,000, I wouldn't speed.
Yeah,
but they're not. and prison must not be that bad for those individuals whose life outside of prison is that bad, that they don't mind going to prison.
Well, I think that for me is probably the point that I think that I would stress is that I'd like to see a different prison structure, because certainly I think that people who are convicted of minor crimes, they need to be dealt with appropriately. And I wouldn't, put somebody who's committed a minor crime in a maximum security prison. And so I do think that, because you know what, at some level, the prison system does do more than just have a punitive effect. I mean, the idea behind it is twofold. A, punitive, right, punishment for these people, and B, some belief that there's a rehabilitory nature to it. And I don't think that that's going to. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said, I don't.
And that go ahead. I'm sorry. The delay's killing us. Go. You finish.
I know. I don't think that somebody like James Holmes should be entitled to some rehabilitative program. I don't think you can rehabilitate somebody that's gone this far. But a kid who maybe has, sold some marijuana illegally, maybe you can rehabilitate him and then set him straight. There are plenty of people who have done time who have come out and been really good people. They just made a mistake.
Well, and that's where, you start to look at, I used to work minimum in, it was, I guess we'll call it a halfway house, if you will. They come out, it's a reacclimation program. But it wasn't as good as I thought it probably should have been. And maybe that should be used more when you start talking about, make the incarceration part of it a living hell. All for it. Maybe shorten it up. You get busted for marijuana possession, you go in the hole for 6 months or whatever, and it is really that bad that you don't want to go back. Now, what do you do for the next year where you come out, okay, now let's get you set up to succeed. Instead of setting, because really in my opinion, from what I know and what I see, and the prison population is not, or the prison experience as a whole is not set up to get that person out and become productive. It's a holding tank. It's something to do. They don't come out necessarily with a skill. They don't come out. Sometimes they may come out with an education, but they don't have any. There's laws that prohibit them from being hired sometimes, or at least allow them to be discriminated against. But if they come out and they go through the program and they say, okay, now let's get you in an education program. What do you want to do? Let's give you the footing and the base to be rehabilitated, instead of wasting the money on just holding them and doing nothing, but allowing them to play time 1 or 2 hours a day and enjoy whatever happens in the shower afterwards.
Yeah.
There's just too much. Honestly, there's too much BS in the system and not enough direct correction.
I agree with that.
I'm never going to get that across. I mean, when that comes to my views, I'm kind of closer to Donald Trump. I'll just say it.
Right. You know what, though? Poor Donald. I agree with that, though, because I think that if prison was a scarier place and for those people that can't be, or at least in the most objective way, decided that they can't be rehabilitated, I think that for those people that could be, if there was a better structure. I mean, look, we've all seen those movies. You've seen it more in real life with your prior job, but we've all seen the movies where somebody gets out of jail and they're, left out in front of the prison with their bag in their hand. All right, good luck to you. Sure. What happens next? And sure, there's parole or there's, follow up, but really, how rehabilitative is that? What sort of plan? And that's where I think the taxpayer dollars should be, because if they really truly looked at the prison system as rehabilitative for those people who fit into a particular category, then perhaps that rehabilitative spending might prevent reoccurrences and more taxpayer spending on sending somebody else, a repeat offender, back to jail.
No, you're right. It should be a system that is preventative and reconstructive, and it's neither.
Yeah, that's true. It is neither.
It really is neither.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and unless you're crazy, you might get a nice, or at least can be found crazy. You might be able to find a nice place where you can go hang out for the rest of your life, and that's probably what this guy's going to do. Pony up next to Mr. Bernard Goetz, or who was the guy that shot Reagan.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting too? Just for a second, Aaron Hernandez. I can't remember the prison that he's in. I'm going to try to find it real quick.
Okay.
just can't remember where he is, but where he is like the top facility for sticking people. What's his name? The shoe bomber's there. The Oklahoma City bomber. Remind me of his name.
Is he?
What's his name?
I can see his face.
I know.
The Unabomber. I can see both of them. Ted Kaczynski's the Unabomber. Not Richard Marx.
No, he was a singer.
He just wears.
Wait a minute.
They're all
Timothy McVeigh.
MCI.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, him. Oklahoma. Yeah, I'm thinking shoe bomber for some reason.
Nope. Shoe bomber.
MCI Cedar Junction.
Okay. So
Massachusetts.
Yeah. So I mean, these people, the shoe bomber and Timothy McVeigh, they're still alive. So that's another thing with the death penalty. It takes sometimes years and years. People could live for 10, 15, 20 years on death row before anything happens to them. So I don't know. My feeling is that more time and effort needs to be spent into sort of restructuring and redefining the prison system to make it something that is punitive, where if you can't be rehabilitated, and we know this because of the heinous nature of your crime, what's Manson, for example, this is a non-rehabilitative person. We've analyzed and decided as a society, from a medical standpoint, that this guy is nuts and can't be let out ever again. So then it should be punitive. And those people that might have a chance because they've made a mistake, whether it's something like, an assault charge or a domestic violence charge or drug possession, but it was truly something that they got themselves into, and they're not criminals by nature, or they're not without remorse or feeling. They're not a mass murderer. They're not going to eat somebody's face off. Those people, they should be more in a rehabilitative program, but that needs to be a restructuring all the way around, I think.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's going to take a lot, and it's whether or not somebody actually wants to do it.
Yeah.
And now you start to look at what is the business of prison, but that's a bigger discussion. Oh, rolling right along. We got off on a little tangent there. Well, like I say, we'll see if his insanity defense spares his life or not in a future update. Also, an update at least for us. We talked about certain situations that happened. Well, a groundbreaking new Tennessee law makes it legal for Good Samaritans to break into hot cars and rescue dogs trapped inside. We've talked about a few stories in the past about people being arrested for busting windows out to save dogs or hopefully not children. But it's a common sight. And what's worse is that people can be fined or charged for trying to help. But now a groundbreaking new law that has been passed in Tennessee makes it acceptable for Good Samaritans to break into random cars in order to rescue dogs that have been locked inside. The law is an extension of the state's existing Good Samaritan law that allows people to break into cars to save children, and it came into effect on July 1. However, there are specific steps that must be followed in order for it to be considered legal. Now, the Nashville Fire Department Chief Mike Franklin told WKRN that if you act reasonably, as any reasonable person would respond, you will not be at fault to save a life. You will not be at fault to save the life of a human or an animal. Now, Tennessee State Representative David Hawks said the idea for the bill came about after he heard of the story of a dog that died in between a passerby calling police and the cops actually getting to the car. It's good for folks to know that they have this ability to take action should a possible tragic event happen, Hawk told the Johnson City Press. According to the Humane Society, the temperature in a car could reach up to 120 degrees on an 85-degree day. The new bill has been welcomed by animal advocacy groups, of course, which now hope more states will adopt similar laws. Aside from Tennessee, 16 other states have laws on prohibiting unattended animals in vehicles. However, House Bill 537 is thought to be the first of its kind in the U.S. Great study. It makes sense. It's kind of short-sighted not to consider it. You know, it's if Congress could just do Congresses, whether it's at the state level or at the national level, could just do sensible things like this all the time, we probably wouldn't hate them so much.
Okay, so here's my issue with it. Okay, I
You have an issue with the law?
I have an issue with it. So,
all right, yeah, go ahead, dog killer.
Here's my issue with it. I don't want somebody thinking that my dog is in distress if I have the dog in the car with the window open and I'm, 5 minutes and I know as a responsible pet owner that this is okay. I don't want some do-gooder coming by 2 seconds after I've left my vehicle with a crowbar smashing my window to save the dog. Now, I think that that's this sort of the Good Samaritan law. It needs to be clearly defined. And here's how the statute reads. Okay, first, you have to determine that the vehicle is locked and there's no reasonable method for the animal to exit the vehicle. That's the point of putting him in the damn car. I don't want my dog roaming around the parking lot. Okay? Number 2, you have to have a good faith belief that forcible entry into the vehicle is necessary because the minor or animal is in imminent danger of suffering harm if not immediately removed from the vehicle, and based upon the circumstances known to that person at the time, the belief is a reasonable one. You have to understand that while I love animals and I love animal rights, there are a select group of people in any sort of walk of life, in any club, in any area, whether you're a pipe smoker, whether you're a cigar smoker, an animal activist, crafts, you like to do crafts, there are always those people that take it to the extreme. So
yes.
if you don't educate people, and this is my problem with the law in general, people are not educated enough about the law to understand what their rights, and obligations are. So a good faith basis that the dog is in imminent danger. Imminent danger needs to be defined for people because they're not going to take this statute and read it. So if my dog is sitting there panting in the car and I'm gone for 3 minutes and somebody comes by and says, look at this, he's panting, he's in imminent harm, let's get the crowbar. Now I've got a busted window. My dog wasn't in danger. I think it's different with a kid. And this statute applies to kids and animals. But, I'm worried about this. Let me just go on, because you also have to have contacted local law enforcement agency, the fire department, or a 911 operator prior to forcibly entering the vehicle. And you have to place a notice on the vehicle's windshield with the person's contact information, the reason the entry was made, the location of the minor or animal, and the fact that the authorities have been notified. So just wait, let's play this out. I'm walking by a car. I see a dog. I'm going to first check all the doors, and they're all locked, and now the car alarm starts going off. So now the dog is frantic in the car with the car alarm
coming anyway.
Right. So you got all these people looking at you, and now you're going to call the police, and you hear the sirens in the background of the car. There's a dog. He's in the car. He's hot. I'm going to break the window. Now you've got the police on the other line saying, oh crap, what do we do? Because they don't know enough about this statute. So now the guy runs.
Bring me a piece of paper and a Sharpie as well.
He has his crowbar and he's going to bust open the window with the car alarm going off. But some other good Samaritan says, oh, look at this guy. He's breaking and entering. He's breaking into this car to steal it. So they pull out their gun and shoot him. And the dog's still in the car.
And the dog's still in the car. Guy rolls up, shoots the dog too. I know.
So it's got good intent. But my problem with any law, nobody learns about it.
The devil's in the details.
Well, when you think imminent harm, it might mean something to you that's different than what my definition might be of imminent harm. And while no law is perfect, and we write these laws in this manner to sort of give ourselves some leeway, because imminent harm becomes an issue that is factual in nature, so it would be a question for a jury. Was this person's actions reasonable? Was it, did they follow? First, the way that this would be analyzed is first you'd look and see, did this person who broke the window, because let's assume that it's you and your dog's in the car and somebody breaks your window and now you're pissed because your dog was okay. They've taken the dog, you get them back, everything's fine, but you got a broken window. So you sue this person. What you would have to do first is, and this is a civil case, you'd have to show that this person acted unreasonably. If they didn't comply with one of these terms, if they didn't leave you the note, hi, cruel animal owner, I have busted your window open, called the police, and taken your dog to the, if they didn't do one of these things, you would have a civil remedy against them. And just, so, sometimes I think,
man, you have successfully lawyered this thing up. Where you go?
You hate this law now, don't you?
No, actually, I still think the law is good, but you brought up some great points. However, the one thing I think is that capitalism should reign heavily here. Now we need to figure out a market and a product to make that will alert passersby to the fact that I know my dog's in there. I know it could be hot, but I've equipped him or her with some form of
a talking
they make
device.
Transmitters already. Well, a color sensitive collars. If the collar's red, it's okay to break my glass. If it's anything else than red, then no.
You know what? That's such a good idea.
Now you got a colorblind guy. What are you gonna do?
You can't
determine the difference between red and green.
You put a thermometer in the car. I'm not that hot. I'm getting hotter. I'm melting. or you
joke, but
yeah. Or you create the voice box, that can interpret a dog's barks. I am very hot.
Like in was it up squirrel? Doug. But there actually are products out there that you can put on your dog that if it gets too hot, they'll send you a text message.
Right. You know what though? You know what it comes down to, Bob? Mm-hmm. It comes down to this: be a responsible pet owner. Be a responsible parent.
True.
Have common sense. If you had common sense, none of this would have to happen.
Well, and there's a bit of selfishness involved, and there's one reason we don't get a dog as a family. It's because we have two kids. And it's not that we don't love our children, but we know that we have to do everything for them pretty much, and we have to. We don't want a third. If we want a third, we'll make one. But a dog, at 18 the kids leave. The dog doesn't.
Right.
Eventually it will die. But for the most part, you've got another child until that dog decides to do something else with its life, which isn't going to happen. He's going to stay at home. He's probably lay on the couch all day and eat all your food.
Not going to make any money. Not going to help you with the groceries. Nothing.
He is going to be a freeloader. He's going to eat his crap laying around everywhere. But it puts you right to a degree. People, they take their dogs with them everywhere. I can't leave them at home. Well, yeah, you can. That Kroger doesn't allow the dog in there, so don't take him to Kroger.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of it does come down to responsibility and lack of selflessness that where these situations arise. But so capitalism has to take over here and build a better mousetrap.
Yeah, I agree with you. We recently, within the last month, we purchased a dog, and it was after a lot of discussion. I've got 3 boys, and we talked about it. We had a dog once before that we had to give to another family because we weren't equipped at the time to kind of deal with a baby at the time and then the dog. But now it's different because now we all knew what we were getting ourselves into, and we bought this dog, and it, she's a puppy, and it's like having a baby. You've got to treat this puppy like a baby, and if you're not ready for it, you shouldn't do it, because then you are going to be angry, upset if the dog goes to the bathroom in your kitchen or on the floor. You're going to be, mean. And that's where I think you have problems, because I think most people that are dog owners, they love their dogs so much that they're not going to endanger them. I think it's the ones that get frustrated with them or just selfish or maybe shouldn't have had a dog. But it's the same way with kids too, because there are a lot of parents out there who don't treat their kids right. And you just look at them and you say, you shouldn't have had kids. I mean, being a parent or being a dog owner, it's not something you have to do. It's something you should want to do, not something that you do simply because that's what everybody expects you to do. If you don't want one, don't have one. That's my feeling. Because now we've got this law that's going to just create trouble. I think, although I'm always, sort of a pessimist with these things. I look at it and say, what's going to happen when the first person breaks into my, car while I'm in Tennessee or whatever.
You're preparing your first brief. Don't kid anybody.
That's my curse.
No, but you bring up some great points, and maybe it will they'll get things ironed out so that makes sense.
Yep.
So that's the hope. Anyway, rolling right along. Cleared of a wife's murder, cop sues the sheriff. It took 6 years for Albuquerque police officer Levi Chavez to clear himself of charges of murdering his wife. And now he's suing the sheriff's office and the officer who investigated him, which we'll talk about in a bit. Chavez found his estranged wife, Tara, dead of a gunshot wound in the living room of their home in 2007. The case made national news when Officer Chavez's sexual history became known, including affairs with fellow police officers, and that he spent the night before his wife was killed with his current girlfriend. The coroner initially called it a suicide because of the proximity of Chavez's police-issued Glock pistol to the body, but Chavez was charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. In his July 15 federal lawsuit, which was just filed, he claims the Valencia County Sheriff's Department and Detective Aaron Jones used lies, intimidation, and extortion of witnesses to build the case against him. Despite the evidence of suicide, Chavez claims Jones tirelessly engaged in his witch hunt for a corrupt police officer in contravention of all of the evidence. Among other things, he claims that Jones corrupted the process of the medical investigator's investigation and findings, corrupted the process of the insurance fraud investigator's investigation and findings, and fabricated evidence that he had just bought a life insurance policy on his wife. Even after the sheriff's office declared publicly that it was dropping the investigation, Jones continued to lie to the press, according to the claim, and to the medical examiner and to insurance investigators. The day after a jury acquitted him, the Associated Press reported that Chavez acknowledged he had ignored 176 calls from his wife the day before he found her dead. He seeks, I smell a civil suit right there.
Yeah.
He seeks punitive damages for defamation, tortious interference, and constitutional violations. Can he really sue the cops for investigating him on this?
If he can prove that this is some form of malicious prosecution or that they were so grossly negligent, because remember, the police, they've got that immunity, that qualified immunity,
right,
that protects them from regular negligence. So like you or I, we could be civilly liable for negligence as long as you can prove those elements of negligence. But in order to sue a police officer or a municipality, you're going to have to show that you can kind of pierce that veil of qualified immunity by showing that they were so grossly negligent. Now, if he can prove that they did do all of these things, like coercing witnesses, they looked at evidence and they ignored it because they wanted to move forward with their agenda of finding him guilty, he might have a case that is going to go up to a point where it would probably reach settlement. You have to remember that most of these police departments or municipal entities, they are generally either self-insured or they're part of a joint insurance fund where you pay into this insurance policy and you've got maybe multiple districts or municipalities that are also part of the same insurance fund. And so when you sue the entity, most of the time, their insurance coverage is going to trigger. So you're not at that point dealing with the sheriff himself. You're dealing with the insurance company representing the municipality. And if the insurance company believes it's in their best interest to settle this case pre-trial because the cost and the unknown, the uncertainty of trial is too much of a gamble, then they're going to settle. And there's a good chance that as long as he can prove what he says, what he alleges here, they might say, well, you know what, we should settle. I used to defend these types of cases, and the insurance companies that I worked for rarely were interested in settling. It was just the nature of this one particular carrier, and they would want to push things to trial, and they would file motions all the way up to trial to try to knock these claims out. And oftentimes we were successful just because of the nature of the action. You know, we had one where a prisoner was beat up in jail, and then he claims that they didn't allow him proper medical attention. But when we looked at the totality of the circumstances, there was immunity afforded to the officer in the prison, and it didn't rise to any sort of gross negligence level. You don't know where this is going to play out because we don't know enough about the facts, only what he alleges. If he can prove it, yeah, he might have some money coming his way. If he can't prove it, the case gets thrown out.
Now, does he bear any kind of responsibility if you ignore 176 calls from your wife on a particular day and then she shoots herself? Is there any degree of culpability there?
I don't know how he managed to ignore that many calls, because my wife calls me too. It is a lot of calls. She'll call me twice, and then the calls start to increase in frequency. And just out of like a level of self-preservation, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to answer it because I can't take it anymore. No, it's actually a good question that you raise, because, is there an argument where maybe her family could say wrongful death because you were cruel, you were mean, you didn't, deal with her properly, and you ignored her calls?
Yeah.
I would say no.
Had you picked up one call? Sure.
I would say no, because you're going to have to be able to prove why she committed suicide. You're going to have to be able to prove that her suicidal tendency was not the result of some sort of medical or psychological issue, which I think arguably most people that commit suicide, there is something psychologically that triggers it. I mean, we're not talking about somebody who has stage 4 lung cancer and wants to die. We're talking about somebody who's mad because of their husband. I don't think
I've been calling you all day and you won't answer the phone.
Yeah. Well, here's a lesson for every husband: pick up the phone. You're going to save yourself a lot of trouble.
Or don't.
Act responsibly. If you're going to be married, pick up the phone. Otherwise, don't get married. Just like you shouldn't have a dog and you shouldn't have a kid.
Right? There's a degree of responsibility you have to have. Answer the phone.
That's right.
My wife called while we were talking. 10 minutes ago, she called. I saw the phone ring. I'm like, really? You don't know what I do every Monday morning? Well, apparently I'm not that important.
Yeah. Well, that's what it comes down to.
That's right. I didn't answer the phone. Hopefully she'll be just fine. Teacher saying a district denied her due process. We've heard of this before, but this one's a little bit different. A former teacher claims in a lawsuit that she was falsely charged with 6 felonies and coerced into resigning her tenured position under threat of being jailed. In a complaint filed in the Syracuse, New York federal court, Julie Cornwell claims that the Hancock Central School District and its superintendent, Terry Doherty, made false accusations and charges against her relating to her family's eligibility to reduced fee school lunches. My first thought is, I have a teacher that qualifies for a reduced lunch.
Yeah.
It's a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
She says Doherty then interjected and asserted himself into the criminal prosecution, ultimately convincing the Delaware County District Attorney's Office to force plaintiff to resign her position in order to have all criminal charges against her dismissed. Cornwell alleges Doherty engaged in these activities while also preventing the teachers union from negotiating for her at a disciplinary hearing. In doing so, defendant Doherty bypassed the contractual legal process for termination of a tenured teacher after years of harassing plaintiff, a longtime tenured employee, the complaint reads. Cornwell alleges that the superintendent has systematically and repeatedly acted in a threatening and unprofessional manner towards her dating back to 2004. She said Doherty used his authority to prevent her from obtaining coaching positions and an athletic director position for which she had applied. Defendants instead retained either younger personnel and or male teachers for these positions, the lawsuit states. Cornwell also says Doherty never bothered to verify her school lunch program applications and instead concluded without a hearing and without due process that her family did not qualify for the reduced fee lunches, when in fact they did. She accuses Doherty, a former tight end for the Syracuse University football team, of using his physically intimidating stature to intimidate her, according to the complaint. Cornwell has since reapplied for her job, but the district has refused to respond to her application, the lawsuit says. She seeks $1 million in compensatory damages and unspecified punitive damages on claims of torturous interference with her contractual rights, wrongful termination, and age and gender discrimination. This seems like it never ceases to amaze me, the stupidity of certain administration officials when it comes to things like this. I mean, you've got a teacher that, or an employee that, if all is true, never even considered whether or not she needed the assistance, and then it just snowballed and got out of control. But I mean, what's the crux of this whole situation? Where's the linchpin on this thing? Well, what happened?
What I don't understand is and I couldn't find enough information about it, the 6 felonies that she claims that she was falsely charged with.
Right.
Because my feeling is this: if you're charged with a felony, I don't care what ultimately happens. I can understand the school's position of forcing you to resign or firing you if you've committed a felony, because you're educating kids. And so the duty of the administration is, or should be, to protect the children. So if a felony conviction has happened, then I understand that. Now, she's saying she was falsely charged. Well, a school's not going to charge you with a felony. It's the police that charge you. So what happened?
Right.
What are these convictions? What are these felonies? You know, what is it for? Did she do something outside of school that, triggered this? Because if she did, then I'd say, well, I understand why. Now, I think if you look at this just on its face with what we know, I don't know that she has a claim that would be successful, because I would argue as a school district that I didn't discriminate against her. I didn't do anything wrong. She was she had been charged with felonies, and therefore we didn't want her here, and that's that. But if it's what she says, where she was falsely charged and she didn't get an opportunity to explain to the school, look, I wasn't really a felon. Here's what happened. They had the wrong person. They had the wrong social security number. It was a mistake. Well, maybe she didn't get her due process, but as an employee, depending upon whether you're contract, union, at will, that's going to determine whether or not the school has to keep you. The other factors that she talks about, and I think you were right, you hit it on the head when you said that that's another discussion. If you have an employee that can't afford lunch, that's a problem with the school, with what they pay the teachers. And I do think that teachers in general are underpaid, and the good ones, they struggle. I helped a couple teachers over the past couple of years who love what they do, and they're really good teachers. And I know that because of the positive feedback that a lot of family members had given to these people. But so many of them were near bankruptcy because they couldn't afford to live on $35,000 or $40,000 a year when they're in their 50s and 60s. So I think that there is definitely something to be said about underpaying educators. And I think that that's why we end up getting a lot of bad teachers that aren't qualified, teachers that don't really know how to deal with the children, teachers that, decide they're going to sleep with a 16-year-old because we're not paying them what they deserve. And that's just, my feeling on it. I think that if you want to have a superior educational system, you need to bring in the best people so that you can make our children the best that they can be, not bring in bottom of the barrel that can accept $30,000 a year.
And the other side of the coin on that is there's always going to be a bad apple that's going to be spoiling the bunch. However, it is so difficult to get rid of said apple that it ends up giving a black eye to everyone involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Not
very easy to be with a broad stroke.
Yeah, and not to at all take the side of the school districts all the time, because they are not angels at all. You have a lot of people that, yeah, they don't understand what they're doing, and they'll fire somebody because of something that they believe to be accurate when it in fact is not, and it is illegal. I've seen that plenty of times where you've got somebody in the administration that, for spite or just because they don't know the law, they'll get rid of somebody, and they do so illegally or inappropriately. So it's there too. The one thing that I'm going to focus on today, because it's kind of like the underlying theme here, I think the important point that we should take away from these discussions today about the news is having some understanding, an understanding of your rights and obligations of the law, an understanding of your rights, duties, obligations as a parent, husband, dog owner, educator. I think that if we took more responsibility as a society for our own actions, maybe we would be a better society.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen a lot of schools are they reduce costs through privatization of cafeterias, privatization of maintenance staff and bus drivers. Twice this weekend, as I traveled, saw 2 school buses, both with signs on the school buses that they need school bus drivers. And my thought to that was, man, that used to be a pretty good job. I used to know a lot of people wanted to be a school bus driver. But as people don't maintain their lives and let their kids run the way the kids run, nobody wants to be a bus driver anymore. Yeah. You couldn't pay me enough money to get on a bus with those animals.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's true.
You see the videos. Obviously, the worst always makes for the best footage. But to think that it's not like that, you go on field trips. I don't know how, with parents of kids on the bus. I've had to say things. I can't sit there and say nothing. Hey, sit down. The bus is in motion. The bus driver doesn't need to listen to you screaming at her. Relax. So, you're right. A lot of it just boils back to personal responsibility. And when that starts to intersect with the law, problems arise.
Yep. Yeah. And you know what, though? Even your example of the kids on the bus, I know kids will be kids, but I can tell you this, as many mistakes as my kids have made, there are certain things that we have told them that they are not permitted to do, and they have enough respect for us that they wouldn't. And acting up on a school bus is one of those things, because you could be in an accident. I mean, you could die, and those are some serious consequences. So I think that it again comes down to responsibility. The same way that you tell your kid, listen, this is how you cross the street. You don't just say to a kid, go ahead, go across the street. I think that we have to kind of think more about the way that we educate our kids, and the way that we teach them what they need to learn. I think it's, look, you want to learn how to tie your shoes, go get a YouTube video. There's somebody there will teach you. I think that there's a lot of hands off lately with some of the younger generations that's happened, because it's so easier to pawn the responsibilities off on somebody else.
No, you're absolutely right. You're exactly right. Instead of taking the time to teach somebody, but there's a lot of symptomatic. There's a lot of reasons for it. None of them are good, but there are reasons for it. It's an interesting society we live in.
Now, before we continue, though, I'm going to interject some humorous story, okay? Because we need a little of that on Monday. I'm going to tell you about my bus ride when I was a freshman in high school. Okay. Right. So I went to an all boys school. It was a private school, and the bus ride was about 25 minutes. And I'll never forget it ever. I had this driver. His name was James. James was insane. And James, usually it's the kids, like maybe the seniors, that will sort of, haze the freshmen. Well, the seniors were James was like the ringleader, and they were doing whatever James said. So the seniors would be in the back and the freshmen would be in the front. James was so crazy. The first day going to school, we were going down this hill, and he must have been going like 10 to 15, 20 miles above the speed limit. He'd take his hands off the wheels and he'd scream, "Look, Mom, no hands." And we drive, and all the kids would be screaming. I think I might have soiled myself. I was so nervous. And then he'd do things like, one time he brought a snake on the bus and he let a snake loose. And, you got all these kids screaming. One time he let off a firecracker. And, if you've ever heard a firecracker in a bus, my ears were ringing. I thought I was deaf. And, I'd go home, right? And I'd say, Mom, I was on the bus today, and the bus driver, James, he opened up the back door and he urinated out the back door while we were parked because he had to go to the bathroom. And my mother would be like, "Yeah, that's nice." And I'd say, no, but I mean it. And today he brought a snake on the bus, and then he lit a firecracker. Oh, and he threw some kid's book bag out the window. And the stories were so outlandish that I don't think anybody ever believed me. But and I will be driving my children to school just because of that.
Scarred forever. Wow.
It's a true story.
I don't. Yeah, we always have the older ladies that tended to be our bus drivers. The guys that drove our bus, you didn't want them because they were just enforcers. They were totalitarianistic. You didn't mess up on their bus. You knew better. And so we weren't quite as liberal as the right coast over yonder.
I'll never forget James because he totally scarred me.
The hiring practices. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's scarred me for life. And to this day, I take taxi everywhere I go.
Yeah. Well, that's why I told that story to my wife, and I went through the whole thing with her. And so by the time I was done, she was so panicked. The last time that my kids had a field trip, she followed them in the car.
But so. The kids are going to start wearing body cams.
Yeah, right.
Oh man. Oh, we've talked about this a few times before. This particular situation or what could result from it. An individual was fired for not looking upbeat enough. Now, a man with Bell's palsy sued a behavioral health center claiming it fired him because his medical condition would prevent him from being upbeat and positive. Bell's palsy, or idiopathic facial paralysis, causes muscle weakness on one side of the face, which can droop, similar to what would happen if you had a stroke. David Linares said he was hired as a clinical director for Gila Behavioral Health System, or Gila, we're not sure exactly, without a face-to-face meeting. Seems like a good idea. Hire him over the internet. It's kind of like dating. When he met with his defendant company owners, John Dune and Patricia Dalen, he says they expressed their discomfort with his medical condition and the fact that they did not want him working with children, which is the population of GBHS, and that's what they serve. They claimed his medical condition would prevent him from looking upbeat and positive. He was indefinitely suspended after a week on the job and not even paid for that week, Linares says. He sued the company and its owners in Donna Ana Court for unpaid wages and statutory and punitive damages for human rights violations, disability discrimination, conversion of unpaid wages, and costs. Wow. If this is all true, you can't get a poster child of a case like this every day.
No, if it's all true, yeah. I mean, it certainly is discriminatory, and it certainly does sound like something that you'd want to settle right away. But this brings up another question, and this is a serious question.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, as an employer, I might want to have a certain sort of quality of my employees. When we talked to Lee Cockrell a few weeks ago about his time as vice president of Walt Disney World Resort, there was this underlying theme with hiring, and that was you wanted somebody that was going to provide guests with a positive experience, upbeat, happy, joyful. So what do you do with somebody with bitchy resting face? Which, by the way, are you familiar with bitchy resting face, Bob? Okay. Bitchy resting face. Apparently, I'm on today.com, Today News, right? And there is an article.
You said bitchy resting face?
Bitchy resting face. There's an article that talks about the fact that bitchy resting face is this is a quote, definite phenomenon that plastic surgeons like myself, not me, but whoever I'm quoting from here, have described, just never with that term. Basically, many of us have features that we inherit and or develop with age that can make us look unpleasant, grumpy, or even, yes, bitchy. So this is something that was, it came out a few years ago, and there was a fake PSA, this spoof that went into bitchy resting face. But people like actress Anna Paquin. Anna Paquin has talked about her bitchy resting face, BRF for short. So if you're going to discriminate against somebody because of the way that they look, what do you do across the board with people that have bitchy resting face? Because you know what, you might not call it that, but you've seen those people out there that you look at them and they look angry all the time, but they're really not. It's just the way they look. You know, I think I get accused of that sometimes. But, you know, I think this, right? And I'm being serious. I think if you are hiring for a job where you need a person to be a particular way, you need them to look a particular way, because that's the experience that you're trying to provide to your clients or customers, then I think, you know, you don't have to hire somebody that doesn't have an upbeat, happy manner, so long as you're not discriminating against them, because that's the key to all of this. You don't have to hire everybody. You only have to hire the people that you want, that you think will work with your organization. You just can't discriminate against them on the basis of a disability. I don't think that there's, you know, a protected class of people with unhappy faces. So I think you're free to say, you know, we don't want to hire you.
No, and we've talked about this before. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing these people did was they hired this guy without a face-to-face meeting.
Yep.
And we've talked about, you can discriminate however you want to. Just, I mean, I hate to say it, don't get caught.
Right.
Don't do something so stupid and inane that it is obvious what you're doing. Don't say it. Gosh, we'd love to hire you, but man, we just don't like the way you look.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what do you look? You know what? We love everything about you except, oh, you're Hispanic. Okay. What do you expect?
Exactly.
You know,
what do you think's going to happen next, champ?
Yeah, we're kind of looking to bring in more white people.
we haven't hit our Caucasian quota yet this month. We're at 100. We're looking for 100%. Did I share with you the story about my buddy's daughter?
No. Is she afflicted with bitchy resting face?
I hate to say it, God love her, she is.
Oh.
And a couple of their kids in their family, I never thought about this. And it happened. I was told the story July 4th weekend, which was the weekend before I took the week off. They were him and his brother's kids. A couple of them, if you look at them, they're very introverted. If you don't know them. Two, if you don't know them and you look at them, they just don't look happy. They have, I guess, bitchy resting face. And they've had it their whole life. They've afflicted. It's a lifelong affliction. And it's not that they never smile, it's just how they are. Well, they're walking, the four of them, my buddy and his wife and their two kids. He has the kid with the BRF with him. She has that child with her. He's walking with the other one, and he's in the front. And they pass a homeless person on the street walking to Tiger Stadium.
This sounds like I'm waiting for the punchline.
There is a punchline coming. There really is. It takes a while to get there when I'm telling it, apparently. But so they're walking, and him and his one daughter see the guy, and they continue walking. Well, he knows that his wife and other daughter are right behind him, and he hears the homeless person say, "Smile, kid, it ain't that bad." This kid can cure cancer with her face. This kid is making a homeless man see the light. He's taking the money he has collected all day and giving it to her. Smile, kid. It ain't that bad. Trust me, I know. True story. I'm sitting here, and it's exactly how it happened. I'm not making any part of that up. But this girl really does. She just has that, and her and her two cousins have that just look on their face like they're just not thrilled to be anywhere.
Well.
And not even the Tiger game.
Oh, well, now you have a diagnosis for it, though. Now you can put a term to it.
I don't know if I would say anything to him or not. I don't want to break her heart. I don't want him to feel bad. Oh, by the way, I know your daughter has bitchy resting face. I found this out. What?
Oh my God. Well, it was Anna Paquin
your bus story.
Anna Paquin told, I believe it was Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel. It was Jimmy Kimmel that she had it. Like she admitted, I've got bitchy resting face. The part that I think is even more hilarious than any of this is that the article that was on today.com, it's talking from the point of this plastic surgeon who is hoping to cash in on all of those people that have BRF.
Of course.
So I can make you look happy. Make you look like the Joker. The Joker always smiled.
Capitalism, once again, taking a stand for the downtrodden. Whether you're a dog in a hot car or just someone that doesn't look that pleased.
Somebody suffering from BRF.
Never heard of it. Wow. New term. I'll try it out on my wife tonight. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. They just don't answer her calls.
Exactly. I knew it was on the other end. We talk about being responsible for death here and there, depending on how your role is. An Upper East Sider, talking about Manhattan's son, has been sued for a grisly murder. Wasn't convicted, he was sued. Though a jury found him too mentally ill to be held criminally liable, the Upper East Side man who killed his philanthropist mother 4 years ago now faces a civil lawsuit for wrongful death. Barbara Wyden Schwartz, Fischler's eldest son, Jonathan Schwartz, stabbed her to death with a 13-1/4-inch kitchen knife as she was lying down in the bedroom of her Upper East Side apartment on the night of July 2nd, 2011. Schwartz confessed in the first 911 call that he made that night, but called 911 again and claimed that his mother could kill herself. I wonder how that went. I just called you, and I misspoke. I didn't kill her. She killed herself. Forget everything else. Nothing to see here. These aren't the droids you're looking for. News reports from the Times show. Fischler's estate and the estate of her now deceased youngest son claiming a July 14 complaint that Schwartz then tried to stage the scene as a suicide by changing out his bloody pants and placing the knife in his mother's hand. When police arrived, however, Schwartz allegedly admitted what he had done in person and in writing. A Manhattan judge deemed the schizophrenic Schwartz mentally unfit to stand trial at least 3 times before the case finally made it to a jury this past November. The estate says Schwartz conceded that he had murdered his mother at trial and that he knew that he was stabbing her at the time he committed the act and intended to stab her. On December 18th, the jury found Schwartz not criminally responsible by reason of mental disease or defect. Guilty, just not liable. He is currently an inmate at the Mid-Hudson Psychiatric Hospital, which found that he had a dangerous mental disorder on March 17th of this year. Now, see, I found out that he had a dangerous mental disorder on July 2nd of 2011. I'm smarter than they are. The estates seek unspecified damages for wrongful death and a survival claim. Can you actually, I mean, this is basically a family or an estate suing another family member for killing their mother.
Yeah.
I mean, this
well, you have to wonder.
The Hatfields and McCoys to a whole new level.
Well, here's where I think it's interesting. Are they suing him because he is somehow going to inherit money or did inherit money? Because what would this guy have? According to the New York Post, he killed his mom over a 2-pack-a-day smoking limit. Okay, so clearly this is somebody who you would not think is sitting on a stack of cash.
All I can think of is Monty Python. Help, I'm being repressed. I'm being repressed. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
we're off the tracks today.
Well, here he says, here's a quote from him. "I just went wild. It's a terrible incident. It should never have happened." So, it
equates to oops.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand this beyond the fact that he has money somewhere, because you're not going to go and sue somebody in a civil manner if they don't have money, because that's what civil lawsuits are about for the most part. This isn't seeking injunctive relief or anything of that nature. This is purely about money. So where does he have the money, and why do they want to get it? So did his philanthropist mom, who you have to imagine had a ton, did she leave him money in the will, and are now they trying to sue to get that money? Because when you kill your mom, you probably shouldn't be entitled to the money that she left you. I don't know.
Exclusionary cause in the will at that point.
Yes. You forfeit your shares under my will should you kill me, and try to make it look like I did it myself.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but it has to be about money. He's got to have money somewhere. So imagine, sitting in a psych ward, sitting with a stack of cash at home, that you can't use because you're crazy. I could use that cash.
Back on 2 packs a day or not? Yeah. There must be. They probably figure he can. Well, sadly, he that money can do some good, probably, because I don't know if Mid-Hudson Psychiatric Hospital is a taxpayer-funded entity or not, but maybe it's a private facility. I don't know.
Well, look, lesson learned here.
Funding of them.
Don't kill your mom.
At least don't admit to it.
Yeah. Only make one 911
call. Your hunch.
Yeah. Go with your first effort.
I now know. You go. Your first effort's always your best effort. Or at least if you're thinking about a psychiatric plea, start with a 911 call with a suicide, then call back and say or start by calling and telling you killed her, then call back. Wait, did I say I killed her? No, she killed herself. My bad. 100% my bad. You can still send the cops away. Yeah, I want to clear up any kind of responsibility.
Yeah, I was so upset. I didn't mean me. I meant her.
I was not in my right mind. I mean, I had just killed her. I mean, she had just killed herself, and I didn't know what I was.
Listen, saying. I have a known deficiency when it comes to pronouns. It's a learning disorder. I'm not good with pronouns.
Do well in grammar. Oh, there you go. Oh, what we have? What was it? What was the gym we had a while ago?
Oh, Planet Fitness.
Planet Fitness. Yeah, they had their problems. Well, now Gold's Gym has their problems. Oh, Gold's Gym apparently hired a rapist, a second victim says. A registered sex offender with multiple felony convictions raped a teenager after Gold's Gym assigned him to be her trainer, she claims in court. JB, the plaintiff, says she was 16 in February of 2013 when Gold's Gym in Las Vegas gave her a membership, though it knew she was a minor and could not enter a legal contract. She says it assigned James Coleman Booker to be her personal trainer, knowing he was a felon and convicted sex offender. Booker had at least 16 prior convictions for crimes, including illegal sex with a minor, as if there's legal sex with a minor, kidnapping, assault and battery, larceny, grand larceny, witness tampering, and illegal possession of a firearm, according to the lawsuit. Booker is on the Nevada Sex Offender Registry, which states he was convicted of third-degree rape in Oregon in 1991. JB says that after her first training session with Booker on February 22nd, that after that session, defendant Booker offered to give her a ride in his car, took her to a dark hidden location where he raped her in his vehicle, JB says in the complaint. JB reported the assault the next day, and Booker was arrested and charged with sexual assault and attempted sexual assault. He pleaded guilty to attempted sexual assault and was sentenced to 8 to 20 years. Gold's Gym is at 4501 West Lake Mead Boulevard, in case you want to stop by, and is now named EOS Fitness. JB accuses First Alliance DBA Gold's Gym, EOS Fitness, and TRT Holdings of negligent hiring and retention and negligent supervision, and Booker of battery and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She seeks punitive damages and costs. It's interesting. We were talking about this earlier about the prison system and not necessarily recidivism, but the ability to reform. And here you go. Here you had an opportunity for someone that maybe if they had a tougher time in prison and they didn't like it, maybe they would have come out and they would have had an opportunity to actually learn something. They wouldn't have fallen right back into the same crimes. I don't know.
Maybe. I think that probably is true because, if you, like we were talking about earlier, if you go to jail and you really hate it, you're probably not going to want to do it again. This is interesting because...
And if they teach you something.
Right. There's been a big push nationwide to allow people who had been to jail or felons or whatever, to get a job. And so like New Jersey back in March enacted this law where you can no longer conduct a background check face-to-face interview or pre-interview with a candidate. So it used to be that if you got a candidate in, you do a background check. And if the background check said something that you didn't like, you didn't have to meet with them. Now the law changed so that you have to meet with them first, because the theory is that you might get to know in an interview somebody who has a criminal past and is perfect and fits your organization. And then you do the background check, and then you see that they've got this potential issue, and you can make an informed decision versus just simply excluding them because of their status. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting because there's this push to allow people that have had criminal histories to have jobs so as to rehabilitate them and bring them back into society. Here you've got...
Make it more difficult to discriminate against.
Yeah. Here you've got claims of negligent hiring, negligent supervision, negligent retention. So if this guy had not done anything, had not raped this girl that he was training, would there be a civil lawsuit? The answer would be no, because there'd be no damages simply because you hired somebody that had a criminal past. Here, they're alleging negligent hiring, retention, and supervision. I don't necessarily think that the negligent supervision claim is worth anything, because this is something that he did outside of work. And so I don't think that they had a duty to supervise her. Nothing happened to this girl while she was in the gym.
Well, and we don't have the brief in front of us. Could they be referring to the fact that they didn't supervise to the fact that they let her enter into a contract, or is that a totally different charge?
No, I think that would be different. I think that a negligent supervision would be if you have let's say you have a guy at a gym who you promote him as a trainer, and he might not be qualified, and you don't supervise his actions, and he's instructing somebody how to do an exercise improperly, and you end up getting hurt as a result of his negligence. You would have, I think, a claim against the person that owns the gym or the company itself for negligent training or supervision, because you didn't watch what this person was doing or help him instruct him right. So that makes sense. I think here, this case probably is going to hinge upon the negligent hiring and maybe negligent retention. But it's going to be interesting to see how they end up handling this, because, clearly this is a bad person. It's, the thing is this, it comes down to the fact that I think that unfortunately sometimes mistakes happen, and, you ultimately pay the price for that. But,
wouldn't that be a good, I'm interesting that you said that. Wouldn't that be an interesting principle to apply in a death sentence?
What, sometimes mistakes happen? I guess so.
I'm just asking a question. I don't want to change your mind.
All right.
I'm gonna write this day down on the calendar. I got him. But in all honesty, I mean, who was aware of what, and when were they aware that there was a problem with this guy is probably going to be the hinge that makes this thing work or not, as far as the
sure. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That's the scary thing. Well, and again, the sad thing is you don't know going in there if you're just some Joe off the street. You got to trust the fact that company has done its due diligence to make sure that their employees are safe. And like you had said in your example, know what they're doing when they're supervising you doing something, regardless of what it is.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, there you go.
There you go.
This is I'm going to jump forward a little bit to Walmart. Walmart. Oh, well, as Walmart has its woes. Every week it seems like we're going to do the Walmart corner. I think. Too bad it's not like Kmart. We could do the blue light special story or something if it were Kmart. Because Walmart seems to just, they're a big company. Like you have said before, they're going to be a target for everyone. But gay Walmart workers are suing over benefit denials. Walmart illegally denied insurance to the spouses of gay employees, alleges a federal class action led by a Massachusetts woman whose wife has cancer. Walmart's discriminatory conduct was a conscious or purposeful effort to demean employees who were married to a person of the same sex, the complaint filed Tuesday states. New Bedford-based Jacqueline Cody says she has worked for Walmart continuously since 1999 in stores throughout Maine and Massachusetts. Diana Smithson, who Cody married in Provincetown in 2004, also used to work for Walmart, according to the complaint. Cody says Smithson left the store in 2008 to be the primary caregiver for Cody's mother, who was battling dementia and living with him at the time. Though Smithson used to have her own health care through Walmart, she lost that coverage when she resigned in 2008, according to the complaint. Cody says each time she tried to enroll her wife in her insurance plan, Walmart has turned her down. A Walmart representative allegedly informed Cody that the store did not offer coverage to same-sex spouses. Walmart once again refused to let Cody enroll Smithson for spousal benefits in 2012, but the couple thought they were finally in the clear when the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the DOMA, which is Defense of Marriage Act, as unconstitutional in 2003, according to the complaint. When a Walmart representative informed Cody that it had no intention of changing its discriminatory policy, Smithson remained uninsured, the complaint alleges. Cody says that the policy has cost her wife and her a minimum $150,000 of uninsured medical expenses from approximately 2012 to 2014. Walmart finally extended spousal health insurance benefits to the same-sex spouses of Walmart employees last year. Upon investigating Cody's case, the EOE, which found that she was treated differently and denied benefits because of her sex, since such coverage would be provided if she were a woman married to a man, according to the complaint. The EEOC finding included a 90-day right to sue under the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Can you tell? I'm sure you're quite versed in what Title VII of it is. That's kind of the crux of this. So they have the right to sue under Title VII. What is Title VII, Peter?
Well, Title VII is going to be equal opportunity claim that they're making here, that they're entitled to the same benefits that people who are married to heterosexual couples. And so that's this EEOC. Let me just explain how this works. So when you're going to file a federal lawsuit for discrimination, and you're going to be relying upon federal laws, so Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, equal protection, any sort of civil rights claim, in the employment setting, oftentimes what you find that you would have to do is you'd have to go through the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, first. And you bring this matter to them as a first initial step. Now, this isn't when you're going to sue in your state for a violation of your state's discriminatory laws. This is when you're going to go to a federal lawsuit. So the EEOC prerequisite, the EEOC staffs people that are going to investigate your allegations, and they're going to interview people at Walmart. They might make a couple phone calls, and then they're going to give a determination based upon their investigation. Oftentimes they'll say, we've investigated and we don't find anything, and therefore this matter is closed and you might not be able to sue. Other times they'll come back with a right to sue letter, and they'll say, we've investigated, we can't find anything, but we're going to give you the right to sue. When they tell you that you can't sue for whatever reason, very, very rare instances when that happens, they might try to mediate and try to resolve the issue. But in general, my experience with the EEOC has been less than stellar. The people that work there, I'm generalizing, they're probably overworked. They're probably managing hundreds of cases at a time. and they oftentimes don't put in any of the right amount of effort into these cases. And it's much easier to say, we've investigated, we made our few phone calls, we can't make a determination, therefore you can sue, and to hand out a right to sue letter. In my opinion, I don't really see the value at this point in the EEOC. I know that they have looked at certain companies and said, this is a pure violation, and therefore you're going to be obligated to pay this or that. And maybe they'll have a mediation and they'll issue an award, or an arbitration issue an award. So I've seen them do things like that, but I'm not a super duper big believer in the EEOC. You know, a lot of people, they get an attorney, they make their complaint, and all they're waiting for is their right to sue letter. So for me,
it sounds like just a passing the buck off to the court system. Just roll the dice and see how you do.
Yeah. This isn't for me. This doesn't do it. It's not like, oh, wow, you know, EEOC, they're really going to take charge of this. No, I mean, they're not. They're going to say, we've done our best. We've made our obligatory phone call and we can't determine. So therefore go ahead and sue. So that's
the EEOC, it sounds like, would make a blanket judgment across the company. Then it would cover the class if there were one.
Right. I think basically the EEOC says here, listen, we can't make a determination, so now you can sue and see what the courts say. That's basically what it is. It's just a pass the buck thing. That's my feeling. Maybe some people will disagree, but I'm not big on
it. Some people might, but I'm not gonna. Oh, well, Wal-Mart, there you go. You know, it seems like every week they have some kind of involvement in. And it's not even just whether it's I guess we'll call it civil rights as a blanket. You know, whether it's gender bias or in this case, I guess same-sex marriage bias. There's always something that they're doing or they're accused of doing, I should say. And I guess that is that big company affliction, though. When you have that many employees, when you have that big of a diverse workplace, you're going to wear that target. And, my biggest question is to that, and you don't have to be a big company to be a target. You can be a small company, and not necessarily everyone's going to get on you. But how does a company prevent themselves on the front end from even opening themselves up, or is it just inevitable?
I think it's inevitable. I think that as a cost of doing business in this world, I think that you will be sued. I think if you're in business long enough, you'll be sued. There's no way around it. It could be a little suit. It could be a big suit. It could be a labor law dispute. But I think that in our capitalist society, I think that if you're going to throw your hat into the ring, you are going to have to deal with the consequences and know that you're going to be sued. I don't know.
And you're saying
big or large
by employees company. Or just in general?
By anybody.
By employees or just in general?
Just in general. Okay. I think the cost of doing business is that. I think that, listen, at some point in your life as an employer, whether you're small, mid-size, or large, you are going to have employees quit. You're going to have them dispute things with you. They're going to file a labor law complaint. Maybe they'll go. I mean, this isn't even lawsuit level. Maybe they'll go and they'll complain. The larger the company, the more employees, the greater the risk that somebody's going to go to the EEOC and complain about you. Even companies that have somewhere around 100 or 150 employees, I guarantee you that one of those people will file an EEOC complaint against you at some point, or a state labor law claim. It's just inevitable. So you really can do very little to stop that, but you can certainly make sure that you're in compliance with all of the laws and don't do something stupid like decide not to pay somebody what somebody else is being paid simply because they're married to a same-sex person. That's just stupid. The other thing too is this, that when you're looking at decisions as an employer, perhaps you've got somebody who, I'll give you an example. This is somebody that actually had this question. You have a handbook, and a vacation policy, and your vacation policy basically says that you cannot take a vacation at the same time that somebody else in your same department is taking a vacation, because now you've got two department people out
you hear that all the time.
All the time. And so it just so happened that somehow a supervisor missed the fact that both of these people were going to be taking vacation. They both put in for it at the same time. And it was approved for one. It was temporarily, or not temporarily, but preliminarily approved by the other, until everybody sat down and realized, oh, no, we made a mistake. And now both of these people are on vacation at the same time. So the question was, because this one person knew that they couldn't go out at the same time as another supervisor and did it anyway and put in the application, do we have to pay her? And that question, while a good one, I think is something that we as employers struggle with all the time, because now technically you violated the handbook. But I argue this. She has the right amount of days in her vacation left. It wasn't a clear-cut, screw you, I'm going on vacation. There seems to be some confusion somewhere in the upper ranks. So to not pay that person, in my opinion, would be a bad decision. Because I think that at that point, you open up the door for a labor law complaint to be filed, because, listen, you were confused too. So that's my opinion. So the reason I'm telling you this is that when you're faced with a situation like this and you want to avoid a lawsuit, litigation of any sort, even administrative things like an EEOC investigation or a labor law dispute, just do what you think is the right thing to do. And you think the right thing to do is to just pay them and then reprimand them and make sure that it never happens again. But that's you just have to be smart about it.
Well, I think I'm going to my kids, I'm just going to hire them through a temp agency and for painting. And that way I can kind of insulate myself a little bit from if they have like a little labor movement or something, because you only got to have like 50%, 51% to get the union in. So it's just not worth it. If they get another kid in here, I get two. It's going to have a 66% real quick. I'm out.
Yeah, that's why you should get a dog, because they're not going to do any work for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So there you go, man. That's it. That's everything.
All right. I think that's going to do it. We ran a little long today, but it was so worth it. So worth it. All right. So that's going to do it for today. Just to keep in mind, tomorrow we are going to be answering our legal question, and let me just pull it up for you. Let's see what tomorrow's question is. It is about, this is a good one. It's about hiring a partner. So you're going to start a franchise and you want to know whether or not it's worth bringing on a partner. So we're going to discuss that legal question tomorrow, legal business question tomorrow. Wednesday, Bob and I are back with the Willis clan for On a Different Note, which is super exciting. And then Thursday, we have another guest, and this is a guy who is the world record holder for bass fishing. He has caught the largest bass on record. It's huge. It's like the Loch Ness Monster. And he created a product. He created a lure that has a sound quality to it that attracts fish. He was on Shark Tank. He made an investment. I want to say maybe Mark Cuban signed up with him. I'll have to just double check my facts on that one. But he was on Shark Tank and did well and has this company. And he's a fisherman. I mean, that's what he does. So he is sort of like, your everyman. And we're going to talk to him a little bit about his experience in business and how he was able to create a product. And, at the time that he went on Shark Tank, he was packaging this stuff himself and ultimately, struck a deal. And so we're going to talk to him about that. So that's what's coming up this week. And then next week, we have another great week lined up. So there's just a lot of activity lately. And I just encourage everybody to check it out. Go to UTLRadio.com. Look at all of the upcoming shows. You can listen to some of these prior shows that we've done and, engage with us. There's a forum now on the site there's an opportunity for you to discuss any of your business or legal issues or questions. Just throw them up there and we'll get to them and discuss them on the show. Also, just want to remind everybody, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. That way you're going to get notified when new episodes and new broadcasts are up, and you can sort of follow along with us, because we do try to build on what we've done in prior weeks. And it's, I think, something that everyone can benefit from, whether you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, thinking about starting something, just interested in your legal rights, your obligations, looking for some sort of personal development, any of those things. This is the show for you. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in, for subscribing, for all the positive feedback, for a lot of the attention that's been received by some of our recent YouTube videos. I want to thank everybody for checking that out, and stick around as this station, I think, develops and gets better and better every month. I think we're doing better and better things, and just bring better content. The website update was a great thing. So that's all I've got. I want to thank everybody. Bob, you'll be back with me on Wednesday. Looking forward to the Willis Clan, right?
I will be here.
Yep, that's going to be exciting.
Looking forward to it immensely.
All right, that's going to do it for today. Thanks again, everybody. Make sure you tune in the rest of the week. We've got some great shows lined up. Remember that there's power in understanding the law.